Gentlemen, I totally thought we'd have the stinger coming in, but we're good. I'm Nathanius. You're watching the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series, and I am just straightening out my shirt because goodness knows I can't do it at home. I'm joined by Zombie Grub up on the desk as we get ready to go into our elimination match. Someone's about to be knocked out, Zombie Grub.
So quickly, too.
Just tragedy. Why can't all the players advance? Why can't everyone win? Because this is the real world, ladies and gentlemen. And just like the real world problems chat was trying to help me solve while I was on break during that last match, we have another problem coming up. Who is going to be eliminated first? Who has disappointed you more as we get into our loser match?
I'm not answering that question. Who's disappointed you more?
Lambo, because he only built Zerglings in that first match?
Yeah. Yes, well, I mean, if we're being totally honest, then yeah, I mean, Lambo was the guy who's supposed to take first in groups. He's supposed to take first in tournaments, too.
He would have been my favorite coming into this group, but now I'm like, if he, okay, well, he obviously won't do that style versus Protoss. Will he, though?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I certainly hope not. As we load in, we're going to kick it off on New Repugnancy. Hopefully you're all having a great day. It's been a great weekend, great week for all sorts of stuff people are passionate about. We got a big movie this week. We got a big TV thing tomorrow, but we got StarCraft all weekend long, baby. We're loaded in the bottom left position. We have the red Protoss player dropped 1 to 2 to you, Thermal. He is DnS.
In the top right, losing 0-2 to Seoul, it is the blue Zerg Lambo. The biggest surprise. If DnS had won over Uthermal, probably just talk about how Uthermal has struggled versus some Protoss, how Terrans all, you know, have an inherent bias against the matchup and so on and so forth. But Lambo to be taken out by Seoul, and only once because of a T-Rax opener.
Yeah, it was that first series was really, really weird. I'm gonna assume that Lambo like maybe just hopefully did something in the last half hour to just kind of get himself out of his whatever this kind of weird funk that first match might have put him in, because honestly that kind of looked painful for him. You know, it can be one of those series that tilts you. DnS went to pro block the natural, so the hatch was built by the third to start this game. But yeah, it was an interesting series. And coming back to what you were saying, it's always funny like being in the chat of like any big tournament when a TVP gets played, because obviously we know Uthermal won that match, but it's like DnS takes one map, everyone's like, the world is collapsing in on itself. A Terran lost versus Protoss. It's like sound the horn, Gondor calls for aid. It's like people thought white knighting happened on the internet too much. When a Terran plays versus a Protoss, that is the ultimate white knight situation.
It's Terran knighting.
Terran. Just imagine a bunch of Terran players with their, I'll protect you, my balance.
My balance. It's a good one.
It's not enough to win. We have to win 2-0 every series. But I'm excited. We're in the early slow phase of the ZvP, so there's only so much we can say. It's a Stargate. Wow, shocker there.
Yeah. I mean, hey, there's been, well, for a time there was, you know, robo openers were almost common, I would say, like from IEM to like a month ago. But it's kind of back to, you know, good old Stargates. Maybe into an Archon drop as DnS plays. His entire qualifier run to get to this position was actually mostly off of PvP.
Interesting.
So we don't really, I mean, I don't have a strong grasp of what he's playing like super recently. Obviously, this guy's playing a ton of online tournaments, and you would think to be up to a certain degree on EU, you just have to have some pretty good versus Zerg. But yeah, all these Protoss are actually just seemingly taking out each other. I feel like I'm talking more and more about how like these guys, yeah, they know about PvPs. Even in the NA server too, I had to talk about that last weekend.
Yeah.
But I actually think that DnS is sometimes, I mean, it's not like it's actually like it's not anything I can really comment on strongly, I suppose, because I've not been impressed buy a PVZ from him, but I've also not been like, well, he clearly doesn't understand like how to play the matchup. Right?
I'm just impressed that we started a PVZ in a Europe group that wasn't on year 0. So I'm looking forward to whatever happens in this game for that reason alone.
Right? Like we're almost guaranteed. That Saturday, last Saturday was just the weird outlier.
It was
Even
weird.
Sunday
That was one of the
back to normal.
Honestly, we talk about like how fun it is to come out and do StarCraft. That last Saturday group was just like, wow, we really tried as hard as we could to make it the most painful that we possibly could get. Oracle flies in, grabs 3 drones, takes a good bit of real health damage, so that's gonna make it very hard to shark back in later on. But yeah, so interestingly enough, right, we get the Oracle. There's a second Oracle coming out. It was delayed. It wasn't like straight away to a second Oracle, but we have a robotics facility, Twilight Council, and I guess this kind of leans into that very standard expected Archon drop as a big option. Sometimes we do get other stuff, but I feel like out of the Europeans, we don't see as much crazy variance, which is, I guess, why these games go so long. My brain always goes back to some of the NA Protosses who have a lot more aggressive builds in PvZ, but I guess it may also just come down to how NA or America's Zergs play.
Sure, yeah. At this point, every region does have its distinct style. Because I think for a time, like you would just say the NA region was just kind of a, not to be offensive, but a worse Korea region. Like everyone was kind of practicing copying the pros from there. But
I feel like the build variance is a lot bigger between the Zergs and the Protosses, especially because like losing that Oracle really sucks.
Yeah.
Fine drones.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in general, we expect like American Terrans pretty much usually do all the same builds, right? Everybody everywhere copies Korean Terrans. But we do have a lot more strong Zerg players in the European region, so it gives you a lot less leeway, I think, as a Protoss to try weird stuff because every single Zerg is so damn good.
Yeah, yeah. We did have a couple extra gateways, so the charge is close to finishing. Sometimes we have those dual attacks where the War Prison comes with the Archons as expected. That was a very common follow-up, as you said. But then also some charge on top of the right side, which is exactly what DnS is setting up for as he sends those initially defensive Zealots to the right side. A little less than I expected. I was actually expecting like maybe 6 or 7, but just 4.
Yeah, 4 is not an intimidating number by any means, especially since there's already some roaches there and more roaches are coming out. But there's the Warped inside of the main base to reinforce this as the Archons come up. One of them gets very low, gotta be careful. But now the Zealots to meet shield up could take the Archons and just try to right click on the drones. The Zealots did make it in. Oh my god, that Queen has a hit point.
This Archon has like a hit point. It's so low on those shields. Ugh. They really don't have a lot of base hit points, just 10 actually. Yep. 6 drones go down to the Queen. It did fall, but that attack could have been a lot deadlier to someone who was trying to, you know, really skirt the line there. Like, I only need 10 roaches, and if I handle this perfectly, I'll be fine. And then that's when that charge lot follow-up, whether it's like all on the third base or all along with the Archons, can even start to overwhelm someone who's using roaches, which is usually very safe. But Lambo perhaps just not going for roaches because of the potential threat of the Protoss attack, but also going for his own attack, is sending his units across the map, no upgrade.
It's a lot of roaches.
Just speed roaches and just more speed roaches, and now some Lings also to reinforce. Dean is going to be prepared for this. He's got a shield battery.
Ravager is going to be really key here because there are a handful of sentries with this. Going to bring back the Prism with the Archons. Wants to push somewhere that isn't straight up that ramp. First force field's kind of a whiff. Basically just trying to buy a bit of time, get the Oracle to focus on the Ravager. Really like that.
It's exactly what you should be doing, and not that many Ravagers. So as force fields come down, I mean, they're not the biggest and best, but
this fight looks pretty
it's one-sided.
well executed by DnS so far, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. DnS was totally prepared. He didn't actually, I guess, over-invest in his Zealots. They did absolutely nothing. They did help call the number of drones, and they did take out a couple of roaches to the right side, and his Archon survived, which is often the most important thing, and they were back home before the fight started, or just as the fight started.
I like the Oracle babysitter. I love the Oracle babysitter. It's like, you guys aren't allowed to stay up at home by yourselves. Oracle's just going to park over your army and watch you the entire time. And yeah, all right, well, just like the Goonies, they're going to split up so that some of them can try to get around to the flank. I do believe Burrow was started, but then canceled.
Yeah, I guess
so. Lambo changed his mind about Burrow shenanigans.
This feels like now a pretty poor game for Lambo. He did that attack off, I thought it was like 46 drones. I saw 4, I swear. And then only like after the attack was doomed, he went back into it. So he's up to a decent count of 60, but only with a 4th base. Is that on the way just now? Yeah, that's only on the way just now. No upgrades, right? Where DnS, I guess he also delayed his attack upgrade, but he was at 60 workers. He was already almost fully saturated on his 3 bases and deflected that attack super easily. So he's going to chrono out that +1, chrono out that Storm. He still has all those Immortals, all those Archons alive. And it just feels like Lambo is going to be on very basic units and not like that overwhelming amount that makes Zerg feel comfortable either. Like this attack that DnS is setting up for is very deadly.
You said it, Zombie Grub. This 4th base is extremely late from the Zerg player, so...
It's just taking a 4th.
DnS is going to... Yeah, but he can take that and still try to move out, right? I think the real kicker is going to be when he steps forward here because there's a big Ling Roach counterattack. He's just now warping in to finish his wall back off, but he's going to have to bring that army home to defend against this. He doesn't have a Dark Shrine or anything. Yeah, actually going to use a recall to get some of his forces there a bit faster.
It's a good recall, though. So this is what Lambo has to do to buy time in case the DnS was going to move out. But the split was pretty darn good there. A lot of the army still where it should be. 4th base might be canceled.
Army's coming up. He gets a jump on the top of the army on the right side, able to force field some chunks of it away. The 4th base is killed, not canceled. So he's going to lose the resources from that 4th, but able to get the start off on this engagement. A couple of his Immortals with the Zealots are still dealing with the Roaches that were backed by the previous 4th location, so you don't want to completely move out just yet. But maybe now is the time that DnS tries to strike. I'm not completely sure. I think he still has a couple of his Storms remaining, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I keep looking at these armies, and it's just clear to me that DnS would win as long as he's not kited to death, which was kind of happening off to the right side.
Yeah.
So he has to be careful about that. But he should be winning these fights. Lambo was not taking good trades. Even if he wasn't at that super baller economy, like 5 base, 80 drones, where you could just send Roach Hydra bodies at his opponent. DnS is absolutely in a killer position here, even hitting before Hydras have all of their upgrades. He has the Warp Prism, he has so many Archons, so many Immortals, there's still a lot of Storms.
No Hydra range, really important to point out there, Zombie Grub. The Immortals are going to step forward, they've got tons of Archons shield for him. We have the Psy Storms available, and with the Prism reinforcing from just a little bit further off to the west, these Roaches are not going to be able to handle it on their own, and a couple of the Archons are going to go down first, but drones are being pulled off, and even with such a wide arc to surround, not really being affected by the splash at all, Lambo just cannot put out enough to deal with it. GG, DnS goes up 1-0 to kick off our loser match.
This is weird, man. Lambo is pretty consistent. He's a super confident guy, so you don't really have to talk about his nerves very often. And he's about to be thrown out of here.
He went, maybe he took the bait, maybe he went to the 1 a.m. showing of the 3-hour movie, and he's just like, I am not prepared.
Yes.
It doesn't look like himself today.
No, he doesn't. These attacks they're uninspired was the word I was literally thinking of when I saw that. It was like, I mean, I'm not that good at game, but I looked at that army, and I was like, that army wins. I'm talking about the first attack, the Roach attack. And yes, that maybe is because he was thrown off a little bit. Like, he lost more drones than he expected, but it wasn't that severe. It wasn't like 15 drones.
No.
It was a drone pull to deny mining for a little while, and a queen died. And
it was like the Oracle got a bit of poking in at first, but it got shut down. Like, he lost one of the Oracles early, so it wasn't like Lambo was dealing with this crazy amount, but I guess that Zealot harass on the right, like the south side, those 4 Zealots were just annoying enough while the Archons came in, and he got a decent bit of the supply block going, but very, very awkward, very uncomfortable. Our admin did inform us prior to the start of this match. I only just checked the chat again, but he was telling us there's no year 0. We're fine. Game 2 is going to be King's Cove.
Oh my god.
And Game 3 will probably be on, I don't know, like Zeldaga Caverns or something like that. So
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we get there, which at this point, it doesn't look like we will, so... Man, yeah, it feels weird. This is really awkward. I don't have too much to say. Like, Lambo's just, the fights aren't going his way. He's taking a little bit more damage here and there than he otherwise should. And not to take anything away from his opponents, Soul did some weird builds himself in that first series of the day. But what DnS did in this first game of this series, very vanilla. Like,
yeah, it doesn't feel like his opponents are playing out of their minds and are proving that they're like, you know, they're not proving themselves against what is,
if they were going to get like ice cream, he got the most basic, boring thing you could possibly get. It's not like he went for something like mint raspberry or, you know, yeah, exactly, right? That would catch you off guard.
Mint orange juice.
But he's like, oh my God, vanilla ice cream. This is insane. It's like, no. it's not. You're just really not handling it all that well.
Yeah, it's just it just looks like a lesser Lambo. Which, as I
It's
said,
a knockoff Lambo.
it's a knockoff Lambo. Oh my God.
Oh,
Someone check. But it's just
that's the greatest.
it's because again, like, there are some players where like, okay, they had a bad day. That's not unexpected. You know, if Scarlet has a bad day, we're like, that definitely happens. If Thermal has a bad day, that definitely happens. But Lambo, even when he looked a little shaky in winter, he was able to bring it back, which is why I predicted him to win this series. But then we start that game off so, as you were saying, vanilla. It just was like, meh.
Now, like the competitive field here is it's very high quality, right? Everyone, especially in the European groups, always talk about how competitive it is, how hard it is for everybody, with all the players that compete in Challenger being so good, and we talk about how much how sad it is that not everybody gets a huge cut of that prize pool, because these are all very good players. So not trying to say anything bad about Lambo. Obviously, his opponents are playing really well, but he is someone that we generally expect to fare a little bit better than this. So, I mean, I feel like myself and probably a lot of people tuning in included are asking themselves, why isn't this going? Why doesn't this look a little more competitive right now? And I'm sure if he drops this map, we're probably going to hear something about it. Maybe, there's something going on, just having a rough week. But that's tough. That's tough.
It's also potentially that DnS was playing a little off standard to what he's used to. A lot of these guys are playing each other very commonly on ladder and in other tournaments, and he was expecting a zig when they actually zagged. But it's just one of those, I can't really explain that versus Soul, right? And that's where this all weirdness started, was that Lambo was 0-2'd by Soul, because he was the one that did the whole hive-based no hive really, despite getting there. And he did fall to, well, I mean, eventually fell to 2 racks, even though it wasn't actually 2 racks that killed him, which is expected from Soul. It's just, it's two things combining here that's like maybe Lambo is just playing a little off, but it's also possible that DnS is tripping him up some way or another. Maybe that attack was a bit faster. Maybe he really wasn't expecting the Zealot addition and was just expecting the Archons.
Maybe that's where it is. I'm kind of feeling what you're saying there in terms of we don't always see the big charge lot warp-ins with the Prism with the Archon drop harass. It's very normal to do the Archon drop, but most of the time the Archons are putting on a bit of light pressure, scouting, maybe getting some kills if they're lucky. But because those 4 Zealots were so preemptive on the south side that he was able to do a flank like that with just 1 Prism there in the north, maybe that was enough to catch Lambo off guard based on his previous games against DnS, which, as you very rightly point out, in Europe, these guys play against each other all the time.
Yeah. So DnS is going to be mixing things up a little bit again. So this is even more so than adding the Zealots to the Archons on 3 base, a little bit of spice. But this is a lot of pepper. We have the Twilight Council first, getting that charge basically as quick as possible. Robo for the Warp Prism. Now, Lambo did invest into Overlord's speed, which I would say is like even like the least common in this matchup. Well, I mean, early Overlord speed in ZvP doesn't exist, but the point is, that could have been a very big surprise for DnS, who is going to add on a Dark Shrine and hope that's not scouted. But a second Overlord comes in. Lambo is not losing any games here to a surprise.
It's the fancy pants man's Archon drop. The DT gut check first. Do you build Spore Crawlers? Do you, though?
Oh, he's not scouting that? Oh, snap. He doesn't see the Dark Shrine.
Now, I gotta say, from trying to think about this through the eyes of the Zerg, if you see that your opponent is trying to stop you from scouting like this and opening with that Quick Stalker, why would they do that, right?
Well,
what's the motivation there? Could there be something to be concerned about?
There definitely is, right? That faster charge is already a little concerning, but he has roaches. He's gonna have them out on the field. The main thing to be concerned about is that Dark Shrine being a surprise. Maybe you're only focusing on the charge lot so you don't get Spore Crawlers.
Yeah,
but
Lambo,
he went for a faster lair though by like 30 seconds, something like that. So I mean, even if it was a typical lair timing that finishes like around 5, it still wouldn't have been the deadliest of Dark Shrine timings, but maybe he doesn't build the Overseer immediately. But he is guarding himself against the DTs too. Can he take on the Zealots? They said he's already building roaches. His queens are already in position. He does seem to be prepared against both of these potential attacks.
Oh, I like this. Pick up Micro for the Zealots, try and drop them around the queens. And once those queens are gone, the War Prism can kind of dance around with impunity. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Pick the Zealots up. And do you just go into the main and warp in the DTs? I guess you see the Overseer. So no. Oh, okay, the Roddy Prism. Two Warp Prisms. I didn't even see this one. And this is that meme strategy. All right, so the Overseer does come up. And is there only one Overseer? Do we see DTs in the other base, maybe? No, that's too crazy. No one would do that.
It's crazy.
Never been done before. It's impossible.
Okay, so that. Oh no, really can't lose
Don't park yet.
Yeah, exactly. So that was not as deadly as it could have been.
No, that was pretty well defended by Lambo.
Yeah, for sure. Getting that Overseer immediately.
The positioning on the Queens and the Roaches to choke them off early on was really good. He's going to start up a Spire now. And yeah, the Overseer control. Really, the Overseer goes in the wrong spot for just a couple of seconds, and that's it. Like, those DTs will kill everything.
Yeah, or you don't think you need it, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be the worst case scenario.
To build it immediately was just as smart. You're right.
Yeah, so the Spire follow-up, he's guarding against the Warp Prisms. Like, the Warp Prisms should really never get into the main base, and the Sentry follow-up here is going to be, like, I think they were literally just morphed in, so not to worry about Lucid Phoenix quite yet either. There is an Observer going across the map, but if Lambo really wants to try, he could also maybe deny that, and also that Observer would see the Spire as it's, like, finishing. So this ends up being pretty well timed. DnS is going to be pretty surprised by it. And yeah, his open didn't quite work out. The Warp Prisms give you so much flexibility in terms of like keeping the Zerg back though, keeping tabs on them that you don't have to worry about a Roach attack, but the Mutas, that's a surprise. Yeah,
let's not forget, you mentioned this, it was fast charge, right? We have Robo, but what's missing here from a normal PvZ is that safety of the opener from the Stargate that we generally have. And since there is no Stargate, the potential to catch him off guard with Mutas is huge. You just Archons. And if there's one thing that I've learned from playing Protoss, it's that Archons do not run around your own bases very well at all. They get stuck on everything. They are like on the Protoss chomp chart of all units, they are probably the thickest boys that Protoss has. Because even the Colossi is way more maneuverable than the Archon in these types of situations. There's still no spores though, so the Overseer not being in position means the Dark Templar gonna fan out. We had one poking towards the third, one in that natural expansion, now two. Overseer comes over and cleans up, but nothing, and actually really not too much done there.
Yeah, that could have been deadlier if he had one DT in every base, right?
Yeah.
And that's not just deadly to the drones, but it also potentially keeps the entire army back because Lambo's not confident in moving out.
All right.
Didn't really go that way. Also, DnS very smartly just immediately recalls his Warp Prism. It's got to be at least something. Also, I love this little addition of a couple of Stalkers. It's something to scare him away.
Yeah, trying to make him think there's a little more anti-air than there actually is. And using the Prism with the Archons is actually really nice. Gets a quick Muta kill, maybe another one. Yeah, I was going to say, that Muta count snowballs at all, you are you're in deep water.
Yeah, but speaking of snowballing, that is the thing that Protoss are going to have to be checking next. Is it more Mutas, and I really have to take this seriously, think about Bling, think about Stargates, or is it back into Roaches and maybe Hydras or something?
He's still adding a few more Mutas. I like it, because there's no, like, there's the Templar Archives, but there's no Stargate. So there's nothing that can actually hard shut this down. The Mutas, we all know about the efficiency of Mutalists and their harass and whatnot, which makes me think that if you're only just going to go into Archons, are we going to see him try to force a big push soon? I don't know that it'll work.
Yeah, that's the awkward thing when you go into... So he's going into Lings. He's getting the melee upgrade.
Baneling
yeah, Baneling speed, and he's going into Hive. So a big swamp of ground units is going to be coming eventually. It is just kind of one of those... I wouldn't even say like older styles. I mean, I love it, right? The mobility of Ling, Muta, and then the swamp potential, the surround potential of the Banelings. It's awesome when it works out really well. But sometimes when that Protoss doesn't take a lot of damage from the Mutas, doesn't get themselves out of position, and King's Cove is a pretty easy 3-4 base map.
Right.
Then you just are like throwing waves of like, yeah, okay, upgraded units at them, but still lair-based units, hatchery-based units, and the Protoss just like weathers the storm, literally, as he's getting Storm +2, so.
Prism comes in, drops a couple Zealots off, and then dies.
Nice
At the very least, yeah, the Zealots get a good scout off. Obviously we know about the Spire, but gets a check a little bit on the Hive timing. Of course, you can't be 100% sure whether the Hive just started or whether it's about to finish, but it will be done soon.
Yeah.
I wonder where the Hive tech is going to come from. Is he just going to go straight into Broodlords then behind this?
You know, I would really hope so.
Yeah, there's no Stargate. It still hasn't added any Stargates at all. Very, very odd to see in PvZ.
With the melee, it's always like, is he going to do something really weird like going to Ultras? But it's got to be Broodlords.
Ultralisk would be a fantastic way to throw this game away.
Exactly. I'm glad
5
you put it that
Immortals
way.
and 6 Archons. I'm like, Ultras may be the only way that I see
Remember
using this map.
in Heart of the Swarm, though, when Ultras were legitimate like late game versus Protoss, and you're like, but why?
Well, I mean, there used to be a time when Stalkers didn't really do much damage, right? So I guess.
And you weren't going Mass Immortal. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was always a weird one. So, I would say that so we have 2 problems, right? For DnS, there was that chance he gets swamped while taking his 4th base, and that's the weakest point you have when you're not quite maxed out, when you don't have the stack defense set up, and you do get concaved on. Kind of scratching that off the list, though, as he realizes, hey, I'm not being attacked. He should be scouting again for that Greater Spire, because he knows about the Hive. And logically, 99% of PvZs, you're going to be expecting a Greater Spire.
That's what confuses me. So he just now starts Blink, which, considering that he was never going to get Stargates, is weird to me, that he wouldn't have tried to get a little early. But this is his window. He has to, like, attack now. Otherwise, I don't know how he breaks Broodlords.
Which I think is actually totally, like, he might even be timing this out perfectly.
Oh, 2 prisons with this army, FYI.
So the weird thing is that if you do have a decent number of Stalkers and the Archons do push through, then maybe you can deal with a low number of Broodlords. Lambo's in this weird position where he can't quite max out because he needs to supply for Broodlords, but they're not quite ready. Can
7 Broodlords are on the way. This is it. The clock is ticking.
But if he uses and loses all of his army inefficiently against all these Archons, then the Broodlords are still absolutely in trouble.
Yeah, well, ideally you want to fight with all of it together, and the more time that DnS spends right now posturing, the worse. The Mutas do try to backstab the Prism because the second one is being looped around towards the third. I think he's finessing this one a little bit too much. DnS, you need, man, I don't even know what to do now in this situation because the whole army is still there.
Yeah, it really...
Link counterattack at the same time as well, back in his third.
Yeah, which is being cleaned up, it looks like. But DnS has really just put himself into this position. I don't mind a Broodlord timing, but I think if you're going to waffle...
He needed to attack sooner.
Yeah, well, of course, like that's the ideal. But if you're going to waffle and realize you're not attacking at the right time, that's when you throw down your Stargates, right?
I still don't see him. Still no gates.
Right.
Right, yep. Zealots are going to charge in, die to a bunch of Banes.
But we have, again, like... There is that potential that DnS is able to push through the lair-based army.
That's very true. It's not like a giant like Mega Roach or Roach Hydra or Lurker or anything like that. No Infestors, no Vipers.
But we're getting Lambo with patching glands, and we know what Infestors look like the later the game goes. He won't need the Roach Baneling Ling army anymore if he's going to fungal literally everything.
Well, that was actually pretty good grab on those Banes there. Trades a handful of Stalkers for all the Banelings. Has his Blink.
Well,
at some point, though, there is a number of Broodlords that the Zerg can reach where without Stargate, you are super dead. Okay, finally a Stargate boots up.
Yeah. Really nice catches on all these attempted run-bys. He is basically guarding one avenue, though, so as I was saying earlier, King's Cove can be an easier map against this style, counterattack run-by style. So those Lings probably shouldn't do a whole lot. I imagine a stack defense.
5 Broodlords. We have
it's making.
Three just finished, 2 more on the way. Another big Ling attack.
That's awkward.
And this hurts because you want to also reinforce your army, right? So having these weapons there, gets a Broodlord for free. That's nice, but probes are starting to die.
Those
Broodlords are a little bit exposed. Where's the ground unit?
No, exactly. He must have recognized that he took out too much of the ground army for Lambo to be able to protect his Broodlords. Like that's why he's being so aggressive on creep. Without knowledge of where the army is.
Still having a bit of time pushing through. Maybe just go for the base then and try to waltz his way out.
That's 12 Broodlords, so their Broodlings are actually holding him up. The Lings didn't end up doing so much damage because the cannons weren't quite done, so DnS is back down to 51 workers.
You can't blink into this though with that many Banelings there.
Yeah, now...
That many Banes and Broodlords will destroy him.
Yep. Now that the Banelings are actually done, which was the timing
Who did hit. Showtime did this last week, right? Well, it might have been in the PvP though. It felt like a bajillion Archons. We're kind of heading back up there. We've got 10 Archons right now.
Hearthstone was building a bajillion Archons.
Oh, maybe it was Hearthstone I was thinking about.
And then the Zergs were building like fungals against them.
Yeah, like, Hearthstone just got his Archon's fungal growth, and that did not work out very well for him.
No, it was a
this is a truly outrageous number of Archons. To try and plow through, like this is basically it's snowing like several inches per hour. You're in like the biggest blizzard and you're like, all right, that's it. Let's just put a bigger thing on the front of my truck. There's clearly no other solution to this problem than to try and plow through 15 Broodlords with mass Archon and a little bit of Stalkers to support it.
He's just hoping that Lambo throws, again, all of the Baneling bodies at his Archons so his Stalkers can jump forward. But we are up to now 17 Broodlords as 2 are on the way.
Good God.
And they have some decent upgrades, too, on their Broodlings.
Right, coming up. Actually gets a solid Storm off. Ooh, those Broodlords are, they're hurting.
But every time, he's not able to get quite close enough. The Broodling numbers get so extreme. Yep. And he still hasn't taken out the Banelings, but he can't blink forward, he can't push forward. And Lambo, I feel like he's been missing this very, like, this special ingredient, the one that's going to make him as safe as possible, and that's Infestors, and he's finally adding them.
I love that Lambo's dedication to this build, because it's very odd that the Protoss would, A, not open with Stargate, and B, not go into Stargate when there were a non-zero amount of Mutalisks made, and then this many, like 17 Broodlords.
Yeah.
17!
Maybe this is for after the fight, because Lambo is going for the gut punch here.
He's finally getting a fleet bacon, but yeah, I mean, I don't know that we're gonna make it that far into this game. I don't know that there's a ground army that beats 17 Broodlords. He's gonna go for it. Stalkers blink up. Banelings are coming. There's the Storms onto the Broodlords, but there is still so much here.
Yeah, and Lambo not even wasting the Banelings.
Now the Infestors are here as well, so if he blinks in, he's gonna get fungled.
Yeah.
Mortal drop to try and counter attack, but
that's it.
We still have 15 Broodlords.
I think.
Oh, what a weird game!
So as we watch this game, definitely it's done.
I mean, honestly, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but even with just like the one-ish Stargate, Chrono out a couple of Void Rays, there's no actual air-to-air. There's no air-to-air in this army at all.
No. So, all right, tied up here, 1-1. I think DnS, besides wanting to hit a pre-Broodlord timing, which more power to you.
He had them. He had it in his hands.
He almost had it, but his blink was late, and I don't think
he still would have been fine if he had taken that fight while the Broodlord started morphing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but he didn't actually know they were.
That's true.
And he didn't, and that's when he didn't know where the army was. And it was
DnS isn't casting the game as well and not aware of everything like me and Twitch chat are.
I mean, if only he kept his Oracle alive, what a scrub.
Look, I'm on Team Twitch chat side. Players should have played perfectly better for no reason.
Exactly.
And should have just won the game so that we could all complain about how good Protoss is. Am I right? Am I right?
Yes, yes. But besides also wanting to hit that pre-Broodlord timing repeatedly, like that was his plan. He was like, I need to hit them while they're not here. Okay, I need to hit them while they're low. Okay, I need to hit them before they're 12.
It's like 7 Broodlords. I mean, we've seen games where people do that. They pull it off with the Stalkers. Yeah. He got him to throw away the whole wave of Banelings. But then it's like, no, my opponent, he's not tech switching. Like, these Archons are never going to be what does it. Archons are awesome. They're actually my favorite unit in StarCraft, but they have 3 range, and Broodlords have 10 range.
But the thing is,
just a little bit. Oh yeah, the Broodlords spawn units. So then, if all the so Broodlords, when they don't attack, they stack up a second attack. So they get 2 sets of those Broodlings ready to go. So by the time that you're trying to push, there's 34 Broodlings that just immediately get dumped on your army.
Right.
And then obviously 17 of them just keep coming out in the attack waves. The Archons will never get through it.
With decent upgrades, by the way.
Yes.
+2 melee and +1 flyer.
But he played Ling Bane all game.
Yeah, exactly. But he also was very conservative with his Ling Baneling. He didn't take any fights. Well, mostly anyways. They didn't need to. There was that one scary moment when he did try to run by and lost everything. But you can see that he played that style as well as he could. Maybe he could have also done Fungals and made it even look super broken. But I think, that's why I was saying, like, we should leave it for after the game as we get into the third game, Port Alexander. It could be that DnS watched those previous games from last week and was like, Fleet Beacon's not even an option. Like, if I take this super long, I'm going to die anyways.
I don't even disagree, but I do think that forcing the Zerg player to add in Corruptors or something, literally anything, because you can't get 17 Broodlords if your opponent has any Stargate tech. Like, that's just not even feasible. But just being able to show a Tempest or 2 and make Lambo build like 10 Corruptors is already going to cut 20 supply out of other units he could have had in his army.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are definitely timings where the Fleet Beacon Stargate combo does come up perfectly and take on the 7 Broodlords, helps even a little bit. You just need 3, and then suddenly you're actually cutting through them. So.
I will say that's got to feel awesome because, like, in StarCraft, it's such a game of imperfect information, and it's very normal for games to be won or lost on like assumptions that a player will make a transition, right? You think to yourself, oh, I'm going to build this. Like when he sees it, he'll do this. And sometimes they'll do something you don't expect. And you're like, well, that was a terrible decision. Why would he do that? But they win because of it, because you were like, well, I'm going to already change based on my assumption that he will change. But then he doesn't change and you just die.
That's Idris stream in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's like I only lost because that guy was bad.
It's one of my favorite conversations that comes up in StarCraft, because sometimes that is actually what happens, though. It's you do the wrong thing at the right time, and your opponent, who has already like thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, well, he's not just going to only build Broodlords, right? Like he's probably going to switch into something else after this. And then Lambo's like, no, if you had like 6 Tempest, you actually just win the game right now.
Yeah. And it was one of those situations where he did get 4 bases pretty easily and 60, 70 probes, and probably could have kind of comboed up on that production. That's
a really frustrating game. Although you do bring up a really good point. Like, getting to multiple Stargates with a fleet beacon is no longer the win condition for Protoss versus Zerg. As we have seen so many Protoss players throw away everything on those carriers.
Yeah.
And Tempest, in this matchup, are really only good at clearing Outpost Broodlords, maybe zoning away some of the area units like Vipers, but generally speaking, they just live to die to like Hydras and Corruptors.
And to also bring up the map, King's Cove, in the same way that a Protoss can be concaved on as they grab their 4th, they get off that high ground. It also is brutal for, we saw this, the Protoss to move into the Zerg's concave when they're on 5 bases and their creep spread is far out, right? Like, there's just no ideal angle. And then if you try a choke, then you just open yourself up to fungals potentially, and you can't maneuver through when you're trying to reach those juicy Broodlords. So it's tough. Multiple reasons why it's tough. And DnS, I think we also have to remember that game kind of started off with DnS wanting a bit more from his opener, and Lambo just completely denying him that with the fast Overlord speed.
Yeah. Got to be a good bit of motivation, though, for Lambo. Get the psyche back up a little bit, fill that motivation bar.
Yeah.
And hopefully see a strong Game 3 out of him. And I think the Lambo fans tuning in probably felt a little bit let down until that map. But honestly, I'm still going to write that game as a weird one, because it is odd to see a Zerg player not really consider that. But that could be one of those things that we're just not aware of because we don't see their ladder games. Perhaps when DnS plays Lambo on ladder, he actually just never goes Stargate. And Lambo thought to himself, well, yeah, I can go Mutas, and then I can go Mass Broodlord, because I know that he's going to try and just use Archons.
Yeah.
Which, against a normal Zerg player, that many Archons will allow you with Stalkers to plow through, like, 7 Broodlords, maybe even 10. But, like, 17, that's tough. It reminds me when they first started like buffing the Thor with like single target, and you're like, yeah, use it to kill Broodlords, and I'm like, this is really good. And then like some Zerg players are like, but if I have like 20 Broodlords, then you are super dead.
Yes. And the really smart ones don't get neural parasite and ruin my day.
Oh my god, yeah. Well.
So these adepts aren't really doing a whole lot. The first 2 adepts didn't do a whole lot. This adept didn't do a whole lot. The Spore Claw finishes perfect timing, so the Oracle doesn't do a lot.
No.
Oh, lordy, it almost died.
Ouch, owie.
It is not attackable in that area, though, so it will regen its shields and get out. But tough start there. But we're back to the Stargate opener, right? And DnS did really well in that first game.
There's a reason why the Stargate opening is so popular. A, Oracles are really good. B, Phoenix are really good. C, Safety Void Ray is amazing against early Roach attacks. Especially anybody that plays like ladder, like being able to have those options is so nice, because the Oracle can also deal with Zerglings that attack if they try to go for a big flood onto your 3rd. And we also have seen that Oracle be useful in this match, right? We had the Oracle used to pick off the Ravager in the first game. Like, just being able to make moves like that is so nice. And then obviously it gives you a really easy segue to deal with the air units at the end of the game.
So this time we only had 4 gateways total, which is enough to warp in those Archons, as opposed to the couple extra and then the faster charge as well, right? So he's not going to have the charge addition. It is going to be those Archons. And if Lambo were to do the same Roach attack, it could probably do pretty well. Now, the Adept earlier didn't do a whole lot, but
5's not bad. Oh, he's going to try to get another stasis trap. We'll lock 1 drone down.
And then taking attention away. Lambo Mining is denied every time you do this, even some of the juiciest hits. And the Overlords have been pushed back at least temporarily. With Overlord speed, it's like never really permanent, but the Archon drop's not going to be seen from 1,000 miles away. The link count, not really strong enough to truly threaten this base, but he did just use his Warpins, so this is the awkward moment here.
It's like, I can't really do anything here.
Yeah.
Have an Immortal coming out, but it's a little ways off. With that Pylon gone there, even if you have the Warpins, you can't just drop it straight there. So these Archons are going to go for a little bit of a poke, a little bit of a push.
This is kind of a disaster to lose the Nexus to, like, 8 lanes, and the Warp Prism is going to go down if it's not careful.
Wow, one Stalker shows up like, stop! Citizens, arrest! You must cease your activities! Zealot shows
he's
up.
gonna save it, but that's an almost completed Nexus with that much health.
Yeah, this base is a real easy snipe later on.
That's devastating. And Lambo is going for another roach attack, but not just directly to the face. He's going for the Nidus Worm. He will be able to snipe that base and then enter the main and probably cut out a lot of production. DnS has put a lot of his production around that one pylon on a Stargate.
There are
brutal.
There's some spaces in that main base that DnS does not have vision of. Look at it! Look at it!
Yeah, this is all types well set up for a Nidus Worm attack, and at the very least that their Nexus is like a guaranteed kill.
Yeah, no, this is just begging for a Nidus attack, and so I think you make this push in the third base, you have the Nidus. It's interesting, because this is, I guess it's going to help reinforce. I feel like taking this third out still shouldn't be that difficult, that he needs the Nidus here. I would have liked to see him try to get an Overseer by that third, but there's some sentries with some Immortals, but this is a lot of Roaches, and okay, I guess having the Queen Series is going to be really nice.
He never even started charge. These Zealots, they need the force fields to even be helpful. And hey, they are getting a lot of swipes, but that's still a lot of Roaches coming forward here. The Immortal's not quite touched. The Nexus is not being targeted. So maybe, just maybe, but DnS needs to start juggling
the instant reinforcement, right? He's canceled out the Protoss's defensive mechanics here, the defender's advantage. Normally, we talk about how Protoss negates that for the other races, but in this scenario, we get to see it from Zerg with that Nidus Worm, going for the pylon, battering down the defenses. And as you said, the interesting call to just actually try to win the game by killing the army rather than actually focusing the Nexus. But there's 4 Immortals. Just kill the Nexus, just tap it in.
Tap it in.
Just give it a little tap, tap, tap-a-roo. There we go.
That is...
It's all in the hips.
That's really important though, like, because he didn't actually win the game there. He does get the probes, he does get the Nexus, and that means that he probably goes in the macro game okay, but he was going for the throat. He was going to kill DnS, and DnS instead did the thing with Immortals and a Warp Prism.
Immortals are good units.
It actually held.
I would like to be an Immortal in a Warp Prism.
Yeah.
That's a good time.
That is like, if Lambo had not injured that Nexus that much, and he didn't get that Nexus, and the attack went like it did, then he's in a really bad spot.
Yep. Babysitter Oracle following the Ravager home, looking for the rest of the Roaches that split off. And yeah, see, I think DnS has units going around his main base now. He's thinking about the Nidus, so he should not be able to
Nicely done.
Get in with that.
Yeah. We didn't mention it, but he does already have that +1 that did help during that fight. Whereas Lambo, of course, delayed his upgrades once again to do such a thing.
But
he's maybe going to Swarm. I mean, the Infestation Bit's here. It's scouted. The Oracle's going to play for it.
I wouldn't be surprised by Hive, but ooh, yeah, Swarm Host. Okay. That's cute. I guess with the Nidus, right? You could put the Nidus where those Roaches are on the south side, turn the Nidus and float over to the main. Especially because the buildings were all built on the west end of the main base, so the Locust will be able to get there as efficiently as possible.
Now, DnS, I mean, Lambo is, I don't want to call him a Swarmhost player, but he does do it a lot versus Protoss, so I think not being able to get that confirmation again on Swarmhost popping out, but the Hive not being started kind of sucks. The Oracle died, but if he's running into it, maybe he could have pushed like really, really quickly and try to do something, but then he'd potentially be backstabbed by the Nidus Worm, so now it's going to be whack-a-mole.
This is it. All right, so the Roaches are going to try and run into the natural and be a big distraction while that Nidus finishes up. We have Resonating Glaive starting up now, interestingly, after that. And, oof, wow, loses one of the Swarm Hosts really quickly. Make sure you micro the Locusts. Okay, he does a really good job of selecting them, because I was going to say, a lot of those Locusts might have just jumped, they might have just jumped straight down onto the that Archon. I don't like that. I mean,
I guess.
the production line was really wide open, but he's going to come
Yeah.
in here and get the probes. I mean, Locust still, they kill the probes just fast. 12 workers dead in a heartbeat.
I don't think he knew where the production was. He was just taking a guess.
I thought his Overlord saw the Stargate, but maybe he doesn't know that a bunch of extra gates were
Right,
in that
yeah.
same spot.
Well,
I was going to say, this is everything is right there.
now we'll know.
He has time. He has time. He's kind of baiting this army around. He's using his Roaches and Ravagers. Actually kind of getting stuck.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Lambo is trying to buy time, but he has been caught a bit sandwiched there, so half the army goes down, and his swarm hosts aren't doing as much as I think he would have wanted, so another wave comes here, but the army is quite close with enough Archons. Yeah, it doesn't even kill that much with the War Prism microing, so another...
Really good Prism micro.
Again, not wasted Locust, that's how, like, you know, that's something you really want to say, but it doesn't do as much as he was hoping for. The Nidus will lose its life.
Swarm hosts are strongest when the first wave of Locusts is like completely catches you off guard and they're able to get a ton of damage, because then it becomes like whack-a-mole where you're trying to get rid of them and you're having a really hard time. And for the purposes of this game, that's just not been an issue because he didn't really take too much heat. Like the worker loss is definitely hurt, but Lambo's the rest of his army is so low tech. These Immortals from this earlier phase have done really well, but the Nidus is actually able to finish inside of the main. Oh god, okay, well all the Locusts are stuck here. It's a one-way ticket they've punched, but the army is not here. Now if the Locusts were to focus the Nexus, he wouldn't be able to recall. But he's gonna get another Nidus up. And he's actually saved a lot of his Locusts as well, so he can cycle it.
DnS. He's just going for the all-in here, but he doesn't have a ton of fodder, and now he doesn't have a ton of production either. Like literally his production was stalled out here. I guess he does keep the Nexus alive, and the Roaches are caught without the help of Locust, and this army is specifically anti-Roach, but here comes some Locust at the very least, and DNS's army is just literally like half that. It just is, the quality is quite good.
Yeah, I mean, that's 6 Immortals. That is not a chump army by any means. The Immortals are going to absolutely slaughter the Roaches that come down, trying to use the Locusts as well. They don't take that bonus damage from the Immortals, so they're soaking up some shots. Gets another one of the Immortals knocked down. The Immortals are starting to fall, though. This could be what he needs. GG. And Lambo is going to survive a very rough start to today, but manages to bounce back, wins that series 2-1, eliminating DnS. And gotta say, looked so much better than the first series that we had out of him. There were some interesting ideas. Even this series was still, it feels like we get a lot of weird games today. Just feels like the games are weird in general.
Yeah.
But good improvements by him.
Well, it definitely doesn't feel like the quick cutthroat of, you know, get those two guys, DnS and Soul, good players, but we're comparing them to guys who have cemented themselves into the scene. And, you know, be done with them and see the epic Lambo versus Thermo. We're not getting that. We're getting like, oh, Lambo's the guy that we have to talk about gaining momentum and getting in his groove. And, yeah, the games themselves are becoming a little weird. Some interesting decisions. It just is, it's not the players we thought we would have to be talking about.
The games today have just been a little bit odd. And not necessarily in a bad way either.
No.
It's definitely been fun to watch, very difficult to analyze, but that does mean, as we said, DnS has been eliminated from Challenger, and going up to the decider match now will be Lambo, so possibly a rematch coming up. Our next series, as we take a look at the schedule, is going to be the Terran versus Terran. Soul will go up against Thermal to see who makes it out in first place in this group. Big opportunity here for Soul to get a killer upset. Ladies and gentlemen, that's coming up after the break. You're watching the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series.